Now, obviously, we're not a celebrity drama channel at all, but I try and cover things that I care about and find interesting and that I think I can have a discussion with you about. That's what I go for when I make these videos, something engaging and interesting, and this one's a little more laid back to just kind of talk about something because the DCEU, or the Worlds of DC, whatever WB wants to call it now, has had a lot of tumultuous career issues in the past few years, with high-profile things around WB, including the case with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and this is no different because the Flash star Ezra Miller has just been arrested. This was last night, and now we're going to be looking at Variety.com, but there's a ton of different news sites reporting on this because they always do. According to a post by the Hawaii County Police Department, South Hilo officers responded to a report of a disorderly bar patron on Sunday evening at 11:30 p.m. Police determined that the agitator had become unruly while other patrons sang karaoke, this is a karaoke bar, and had begun yelling obscenities. Miller then grabbed the microphone from a 23-year-old woman singing karaoke and later lunged at a 32-year-old man playing darts. Now here's why I wanted to talk about this. It's not because I want to hate on Ezra Miller or because I want to guard his actions and act like I know this person in real life and everything's okay and no worries at all. Nothing bad happened here. But because I find this interesting around the situation with WB, and I also think it's a bit of a teachable moment. That sounds douchey, but hear me out. I just think that there's kind of something to be talked about in this. WB has had an issue in the last couple of years, like I said, with a lot of stuff going on around them, the biggest being the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. They got rid of Johnny Depp pretty quickly. Hollywood pretty much ostracized the dude immediately because nobody wanted to be associated with a wife beater. Nobody wanted to be associated with a man who laid his hands on women or did this or that to women. But the problem with that is, later on, it came out with a lot of audio evidence, in my opinion, that Amber Heard was usually the aggressor in most of the arguments that actually got caught on tape and picked up, going so far as to egg Johnny on, basically push him kind of like well, who would believe you if you said I'm the bad guy? People are going to know that you're a bad person, and they're going to call you a wife beater, and they're going to call you this and that, and you're going to lose your career. Basically, she was hiding behind the shield of being a petite, young, hot woman. I mean, that's really what it was. And now, you wouldn't get the protection that she's gotten if you were an unconventionally, well, I guess I should say conventionally super unattractive woman, probably. She got this protection that she's gotten because she's hot as hell. Everybody was fawning over her, especially after Aquaman and other things that she got in. And it was around I guess I would say, lull in the Me Too movement and feminist Hollywood stuff where people were very worried about what they were going to be associated with. You had Harvey Weinstein and all these other things coming out, and it was, Bill Cosby was still in the news. It was like, oh, well, just get rid of Johnny. At least he'll go away. That's kind of what that whole thing came off as when they started firing people like Johnny for their personal life stuff. Johnny had substance abuse issues. It doesn't excuse anything that maybe he said or did in those altercations, but I don't think Ezra should be fired, believe it or not. I really don't. I know some people, their bar, and I understand this, is Johnny was fired, Ezra should be fired too. Because Johnny was wrongfully accused of a lot of this stuff, even if he did get a little rambunctious or say some, rude stuff over text or whatever when he was having his substance abuse problems. Well, he got fired and Ezra didn't, so Ezra should. See, I'm on the opposite end of this of, I don't think either of these guys should lose their job. Johnny Depp is a good person. That I genuinely stand behind that. He's visited children's hospitals in character, on purpose, playing off even things like losing part of his finger in a fight to Amber Heard, I got hungry and I ate it, like to try and make a kid laugh and stuff like that in character as Captain Jack Sparrow. This is a man who obviously cares about people and is doing his best and does have some issues that I do believe, to my understanding, he has been trying to get help with substance abuse and stuff. My issue with this whole situation is that Ezra doesn't appear to be acknowledging the problem. Now, they actually had an issue back in 2020 where they were arrested. Well, actually, I guess I should say not arrested. Police looked into this, okay? And this kind of went under the table. This is the first time when people were talking about Ezra Miller's behavior behind the scenes, where actually there was a assault or attempted assault or choking of someone outside of a bar in Iceland. Now, what is the actual common denominator here? Bars. Now, I'm not saying that alcohol is to blame. As Ezra is completely devoid of any responsibility because alcohol is the evil here. That's not what I'm saying either. But my point is that this is a person who very clearly, in my opinion, has a problem. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think that people see admitting this as a sign of weakness. They see admitting alcoholism as a sign of weakness. They see admitting needing help as a sign of weakness. Even someone, like Ben Affleck, at a low point in his life, needed to go and get help for alcoholism. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually extremely easy to fall into. But I think what sucks and what is wrong is how you conduct yourself, your person, and how you allow these things to ruin your life without seeking help, right? That's something that someone like Ben didn't do. And that's something that, in my opinion, Johnny Depp didn't do. Yes, he did get some rambunctious, outbursts and stuff like that, but it was never like choking a woman or anything like that. My thing that makes me really sad about Ezra Miller is I don't know this person, okay? I don't know this person personally. I've never talked to them, but Ezra seems like a good person when you actually watch interviews, when you actually watch what they're saying to the camera, I suppose, which could be all fake, and how this person interacts with other people. There's not like maliciousness. There's not an anger. There's not a douchiness. There's not a misogynistic attitude or any kind of I'm better than you type vibe. It's just a person talking. All accounts of this person from behind the scenes are that Ezra Miller is a nice person who has problems with substance abuse and stuff like that. And I guess what bothers me is this is something that I've seen a lot of. My dad had an alcoholism problem for a long time in his life. It was actually before I was born. My dad had a very complicated life, and I'm talking about this for a reason, because I don't want to just drone on about Ezra, but I think that this is applicable. My dad, out of high school, got married to his high school sweetheart. They were both 18 years old, I believe 19 when they got married. I think she was a year older than him, because this was not my mother. This was decades and decades ago. And they had 2 children, and eventually she passed away of cancer. After that happened, my dad's life entered a very, very dark period where he was working full-time, raising 2 kids by themselves who also had their own outlook on him and how he behaved and raised them and stuff like that while he was dealing with grief of losing his wife. He really fell hard into alcoholism. This was a really bad point in his life. He started dating another woman who eventually turned out to be an absolute piece of shit, who cheated on him and treated him like dirt and treated his kids very poorly as well. And it just kind of spiraled from there where he fell more into it. He actually ended up joining what I would call a motorcycle gang, although he never called it that. But it was a group of guys who hung out, were into motorcycles and guns, and definitely did some not legal stuff, in my opinion, at some points. That's just my opinion, though, with alcohol and with behavior that was not good. But it just hit a low point for my dad where I know that he wasn't who he could be. Do you know what I mean? That potential wasn't reached. It was being squandered because of mental illness issues and because of substance abuse and because of depression and because of an anger and sadness deep down that kind of pushed him into this coping mechanism. The difference is that eventually he got help. He kicked it. Now, he didn't go to therapy or rehab itself, but what he did was say, I can't have this anymore. He started going to church. He found God more. I guess I would say he refound God because he was a Lutheran as a child. And he found healthy outlets that helped him deal with these problems. Eventually, he met the woman that would become my mother, and he never picked up a bottle of alcohol since then. I remember at the end of his life, people had given him alcohol because, you know, like as gifts and stuff like that, and he had kept it actually in a closet, which I don't know how he was able to do this without drinking it, because that man must have had far more willpower than I had, you know. But he kept it, and sometimes he'd talk about, you know, I want to have more drinks before I die. I want to drink again and stuff like that. But he never picked it up again, despite having those urges, because he knew what it would do to him, right? The thing that bothers me about Ezra Miller and about all of this stuff behind the scenes is that a lot of these people in Hollywood, we don't know them. Some of them are bad people behind the scenes. Some of them are absolute pieces of shit, but like anyone, they have the capacity and capability to be a good person, to get help, to seek it, and they have more resources than any of us who are on probably the bottom rung of the social and economical ladder to get that help. But there is a stigma and a belief in society, I would say especially for men, but it goes for women too, that to ask for help is a sign of weakness, that to ask for help and get the help you need to get away from these substances, whether it be drugs of any kind or alcohol or whatever. It's seen as a weakness to actually get that help, and I think it's really sad. I don't know Ezra Miller, and to my understanding with how invested they are, I should say WB is, in The Flash, and how invested WB is with moving forward the DCEU, it seems like clearly away from Zack Snyder, and how invested WB is with looking not shitty now. It kind of seems like they made their bed with the Johnny Depp situation like a bunch of morons, and this is going to be compared to that forever, and rightfully so, which is not Ezra's fault. It's not Ezra's fault if WB chooses not to fire Ezra, right? That's not anyone's fault but WB. But it still shows a lack of accountability on everyone's part. And I think that sadly, even though I hate cancel culture shit, and I hate anything like that where people are just losing their jobs for personal stuff, I think that until there is some kind of consequence for this, Ezra has no point to actually seek help because there's no consequence. A $500 bail or being escorted out of a bar, that's not a consequence. Sometimes it takes a wake-up call for people to become good people. Mark Wahlberg almost killed a person, to my understanding, before he started to realize who he could be. Look back at someone like 50 Cent, who I would argue is a moral person now, and some of the stuff 50 Cent was doing back when he was young. You know, running drugs, assault, all this crazy stuff. People have the capacity to change and the capability to change. And the reason that I guess I really wanted to talk about this other than just WB DC news that I find interesting is because I think it's really sad that people are so hesitant to get the help that they need to become the person that they can be. And I hope that for anyone listening to this, if you are in that position, I hope that you get that wake-up call, you know, that makes you think about who you have the capacity to become. Instead of just who you can be now, wasting your life away on substance or on violence or any of that stuff and making something of yourself. Because to me, from the outside, Ezra Miller is a picture of that. Somebody who is clearly talented, somebody who's very clearly handsome, somebody who clearly has fans and has people who care about them, even outside of family, and still struggles with this, and I really hope gets help. And I hope anyone who hears this does as well, because this kind of stuff just makes me very sad. I'm interested to hear your thoughts down below. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more. I appreciate you very, very much. Let me know what you think about this whole situation, because I am interested. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.